Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be painting up two squads of Vanari Auralan Wardens. The Spear Elves. Alright, so we're going to begin with basic assembly. Now one thing I did notice in the manual provided, if you take a look at the assembly instructions, pieces 15 and 16, this is actually incorrect. This is the first time I've ever seen this happen with Games Workshop. The chest pieces are actually number 16, and the arm piece here is actually number 15. Never seen that happen before. After all the assembly is done, I'm going to prepare them for priming. So I'm going to use Bright Touch Gray Car Primer because it has very strong grip. And then while they are drying, I'm going to take Liquitex modeling putty and I'm going to paint it onto all the bases. Since I use it to disrupt the ground so it's not even, I apply some. I put a very thin layer. I should have put a much thicker layer, but it didn't really matter in the end. And then I put certain models that had like very distinct imprints onto it so that the putty would make an indent for them so they could receive it later. However, in the end, this was just a waste of time because there was so thin of putty, and the basing that I did later really made it irrelevant. This step of attaching the models on top would only matter if the putty is thick. Now, a note to how I assemble these is that they're basically all fully assembled except the shields are separate, the sergeant's stones that they stand on, and the shields on their back are also separate. So apart from that, everything's assembled 100%, except the sergeants all hold this weird lantern thing. I kept that separate as well. Alright, with Cantor Blue and Hoeth Blue, we're going to paint the, blue stuff. So the frills on their heads and these banners and stuff, as well as their little capes and stuff, so we're going to use Cantor Blue as the base. Then we're going to do a one-to-one with Cantor and Hoeth Blue, and we're going to dry brush. And the quickest way to dry brush these frills on top is side to side and up and down on both front and back. Then once that's done, we're going to take a 1 part Cantor and 2 parts Hoeth and dry brush again. And once that's done, we're going to do pure Hoeth and dry brush again on the higher or raised areas. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush so it gets into the details a bit better. And then once that's done, we're going to take diluted Hoeth Blue and we're going to use it to highlight the most pronounced edges on the banners and such, and as well as the little capes, the center. I then take Cantor Blue and water it down until it's, well, this liquid-like. And then I apply it onto, I make strips of their frills and stuff to sort of mimic the cover. However, in the end, this isn't that good. If I was to go back over this again, I would start off with Hoeth Blue as the base, and I would work up to light grays. Some light gray, and then maybe finish off with a mix of some light gray and pallid witch flesh, yes, and then apply a dark blue into it. That's what I've done if I could redo it, but the colors were too similar, the dry brushing wasn't that good, but I did this already 20 times and it spent a long time doing it, so whatever, I moved on. Now I take some blue tack, which is like a sticky putty stuff, but it can also be used to like fill in gaps and stuff for painting around areas. And I use this to cover the blue spots on the heads and the front part of the dresses. And now with Ulthuan Grey and Pallid Witch Flesh, I then decide to paint the robes. Now these are a huge part of it, so what I do is I start off with the base layer of Ulthuan Grey by brush. But the coverage wasn't that good. Ulthuan Grey is very good at coating other colors, but it needed a second coat. And so I wanted a really smooth transition, so then after brushing it, I then did Ulthuan Grey again with an airbrush all over, made the whole thing smooth. And then once that's done, I took Pallid Witch Flesh, and then I basically just airbrushed him from like a 45-degree angle up and just hit all the bright spots and stuff. I then did the same with the shields. Now, to do the robes, I'm going to take Ustabi Bone and Lamian Medium in a mix of 1 part Ustabi and 6 parts Lamian Medium and a little bit of water. I then apply it all over the robe parts, and it thins it down well enough that it does its own shadowing and stuff, so I turn a paint into a wash. And now with Mournfang Brown, Doombull Brown, and Agrax Earthshade, we're going to paint the wood pieces. So with Mournfang Brown, we're going to use this and we are going to paint their spears, the shafts, as well as the scabbards in the back. And then with Doombull Brown, we are going to paint the shoes and the handles of their blades that's on their backpack. Also note that the inside of the shields will have Mournfang Brown. And once that is all done, we're going to take Agrax Earthshade and apply it on everything, including the spears and the insides of the shields. Now with Cadian Flesh Tone and Kislev Flesh, we're going to paint all the flesh. We're going to start with the base layer of Cadian Flesh Tone on their faces and their hands, and the necks underneath their helmets and above their chests. So the base layer of Cadian Flesh Tone as the base, we'll then take Kislev Flesh, and we're going to water it down a bit with Lamian Medium to retain its consistency. And then we're just going to apply it on their eyebrows, nose, lips, and the lines along their fingers and the lines along their hands. That's it. And now with Hoeth Blue, watered down a bit, we're going to apply this to the ribbons that are in the back. Since they have a base layer of white already, there's no need for further highlighting, as the Hoeth Blue, since it's watered down, pools a little bit in the recesses and is a little thin in the raised areas, so it kind of naturally highlights. And we are doing this with as little effort as possible, this entire modeling kit, because I hate these models. Now with Celestia Grey, Drakenhof Nightshade, and Ulthuan Grey, we're going to paint the stones. We start with the base layer of Celestia Grey. Then we're going to take Drakenhof Nightshade and apply it all over the stones. Then we're going to go back with Celestia Grey and we're going to dry brush all over, a heavy dry brush. And then we're going to take pure Ulthuan Grey and do a relatively light dry brushing all over. And the stones so far are the best looking thing that I've painted on these models. And then I use the Ulthuan Grey to shore up some of the white on here on the banners in some places. Now it is time to remove the masks or the blue tack. Now here's the thing. There were so many models and so many pieces that I used up all the regular blue tack I had that was less sticky, more solid, it had a bunch of paints inside, and that was easy to remove. So I had to use some of my new blue tack that was never used. It was brand new, and all the deep crevices of the plumes on their head got the stuff stuck in, and I could not remove it no matter what I did. For a day or so I tried to remove it, but I could not. So I made an executive decision, because I'm trying to speed paint these and I really don't like them. I clipped the plumes of 4 of the models who had to have the new blue tack on. Did not see that coming. It was sad, but I don't care. Now with pure Ustabi bone, I'm going back and fixing up a few issues with some of their capes and the undersides. I didn't think that the underside of the capes would be visible, but apparently they were, so if I would have known that, I would have painted them white and then put the wash on them there. But so I'm just applying the strong pure thing underneath, since it's going to be in the shade and stuff. No one's really going to be able to see the detail, but I just want it to be painted and not look just like gray plastic. Now that all the non-metallics have been painted, I will now use AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish to seal in all the stuff. All the armor, robes, flesh, and all that stuff will now receive their seal. This stuff will make them look good, reduce all the shininess, and I brush it on all 20 models. And now for the metals. With Ironbreaker and Retributor armor, we're going to paint the majority of the metal, which is like a warm silver. I can't find anything on it, any particular color like it, although it's very hard to find the right colors with the lockdown going on and stuff. But so essentially I did a mix of 6 parts Ironbreaker to 1 part Retributor, and then I applied this on all the metals. Now you'll notice that there are cuts in between several of the same pieces. I'm painting the shield and all of a sudden I'm cutting and then putting to another part of the shield. So since I'm doing a group painting of 20 models and speed painting, then each cut, what you're seeing is me paint a portion of it that I can hold and then putting it to one side and doing all other 20 pieces. And then when I come back, I'm painting the part that I held in my hand, all 20 pieces. So this is more of a factory line of painting. When painting the armors, I didn't use a very fine brush, but I used a pretty small brush, and the paint was wet enough that it would just flow easily off, painting all the chainmail, the edges of their armor, and stuff like that with this mix, and then eventually the helmet and stuff. The paint flowed pretty well. I had to learn to control it. In some places I made a mistake, and if your paint gets in the way of some other stuff, or you accidentally mess up something, take a wet brush and just rub it on there with water and just keep doing it until you remove the paint entirely. You have to move fast though. This process actually was pretty difficult, and my hands were cramping really hard for a while, just holding these. Yeah. And now with Retributor armor, I'm going to paint the scabbards, the metal pieces of the scabbards and their swords on their back, as well as the little lanterns that the sergeants hold, and also all the lettering on the shields and their chests, which for some godforsaken reason I don't have footage of, yet I distinctly remember getting footage of it. Thank you, Apple. Alright, with Elmer's School Gel, we're going to apply, we're just going to paint it onto the bases, and then we're going to squish it into some sand. That's it. And then overnight, as that dries, we then, oh wait, no, I didn't wait overnight. I waited an hour, and then I applied Liquitex Matte Varnish, which is terrible, but it works as a good sealant, and then I applied that all over, and then I waited overnight for it to dry. Now with Mournfang Brown, Agrax Earthshade, and XV88, I'm going to paint the bases now that they're sealed and the sand is hardened in. With Mournfang Brown as a base coat, and then I'm going to apply Agrax Earthshade, and then I'm just going to dry brush Mournfang Brown and XV88 onto it. A lighter dry brushing of XV88. And don't forget to also, you do this, there's 4 of the elves that have their feet with dirt like coming up on it. Now, I consider this a mistake in the end. The earth looks like it's too dark. It should be much lighter, so I should have used some different colors, but I mean, it looks like wet earth, so that's fine. And now with a combination of super glue you can brush, super glue you can pour, and model glue, I then do a final assembly. The bases and the models attached to the bases are all done with super glue. I then super glue the models onto them directly, or on their stone bases if they have them, and as far as the shields, I pour the model glue directly into the oval hole of the shield, and then I apply it onto the body. It just takes a few tries because I had to figure out how much glue to actually add for it. Now, copying the box art, all these elves have gems on their heads and on their swords and stuff, which, funnily enough, is the color of Daemonette hide. There's a joke in there somewhere. However, I don't have footage of this somehow, and once they're dried, I then go with Liquitex Gloss Varnish, which is a good varnish actually, and then I apply it on the gems to make them shine. And then with XV88 in Doombull Brown, I then mark the bases. One squad will be XV88, another will be Doombull Brown. And finally, with the school gel glue and with static grass, I then apply it in random patches to on the bases. There's some places where the sand has cracked open and you can see through, or there are places where the models didn't really adhere too well and it just looks bad, like with the super glue and stuff around. So this is more a mask than anything, but it works well. And done. Not bad for me putting almost no effort into these guys. Okay, so it's not a matter of me hating the model, it's just that your standard trooper that you need to bring like 40 or 50 of has the complexity of many characters in detail all over their body and armor. And I basically just did one coat of paint on many things, and it's the ensemble that really pulls them together. And, well, this was basically me putting in almost no effort just to get it done. There are some things that look good. Their robes look really good, and the metal looks good. And the gold, of course, looks good. And these things kind of like to take away, or like lift up the average quality of the paint job, because it's what I would call subpar. In my own, I just wanted to get rid of these guys, just get them done. I'll put them on eBay, just get rid of them because they're so irritating. It's like the Lumineth Realm Lords has a lot of cool models that I want to paint in the future when I have time. But those are characters, and the infantry are just, there's too much detail, too much in there. If they would have just kept these guys a little more plain, they wouldn't be that hard to deal with. Mostly the edges of the armor and all these small little pieces, and also they're elves, they're tiny, and they're irritating to build. So these are the small issues, but overall when they come together, they do raise up. I would give my work, in person, I would probably give it a 5 out of 10 because of how little effort I put into them. I mean, it was 20, so that was kind of, it took a while. So this took a very long time because it was just 2 squads, so 20 men, and also I kind of took 3 days off because Necromunda Hired Gun came out and I just goofed off for 3 days. So this should have come out 3 days earlier, but you know, it happens. So surprisingly, I'm moving on to more cooler things. I do intend to get all the new box sets for Age of Sigmar version 3 and the new Orc Codex when it comes out. because of the cool models. And by the way, has anyone noticed that the Age of Sigmar orcs coming out look like they're from Forge World? Like their artistic design? Well, anyway, like the video if you like the video, share if you want to share it, comment if you want to comment, or nitpick anything, or judge my poor painting skills on this one, because I didn't really try or care. And, yeah, I'll see you guys next time with something that I've been looking forward to.